This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donny Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN.
The Last Minute Blues Podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for free inspection.
It is the Last Minute Blues Podcast, and it's presented by Blue Note Roofing, roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for a free inspection. Joined in the Jeff Burton studios by Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN. He's also handling all your Blues pre- and post-game. Sitting right across from me, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, covering your St. Louis Blues for over 20 years between The Athletic and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
And you've been doing this a while, JR.
Yeah.
Man, I was just trying to poke the bear early, and JR just. And
I love where we are this morning.
I know.
Yep.
JR's like, nope, not going to get me on that one.
Okay, listen. I try to keep the rage on this podcast to a minimum. I try to keep
What's
the rage.
Definition of try?
Doesn't bring it to the podcast.
That's a good question. I try to not let these things bother me, but gentlemen, there is something that is sitting on me, and I just have to talk about it. I understand that by me speaking this, it is not going to do a single thing to make it better. But guys, if I have someone else swerve into my lane because their dumbass is glued to their goddamn cell phone, I am going to lose my ever-loving freaking mind. Now, just a couple things here real quick. One, I understand that I am unlike most people in the universe and that I am always trying to find time to not be on my phone, to put the phone away and to not have it in my face, okay? But I do not understand the constant need to be on that goddamn thing, and I do not understand the people that legitimately are driving down the road going 70 freaking miles an hour, and they're looking down at their lap, and then when they bleed into your lane and you honk the horn, they look at you like you are the issue. People, I know that there's a distracted a driving law that is on the books in Missouri that does not seem to be enforced right now, which I understand. Officers of the law, they got a lot of stuff going on, and so maybe that's not necessarily a priority, but I got a kid learning how to drive. You got a young driver. You're eventually going to have 3 drivers. So, I don't understand why this sort of behavior is okay. I just don't get it. I don't understand why we have to be on our phones at all times, 24/7. I've even seen people that have them on their dashboard in front of the goddamn steering wheel. What are we doing? What are we doing? Oh my God.
Now they have it to where you can connect your phone, and there's an app that you can watch, like Netflix, on the smart screen on your phone.
Just threw his pen across.
Just threw his pen. Now Donnie's done with it.
Listen,
that's the part that I don't know. I mean, when I'm driving, it's frustrating. I don't know how you guys do it with kids that are driving. That's the part that, I'm going to have it at some point. Luckily, I'm 11 years away from it happening, which will get here faster, but I don't know how you guys handle that.
I just, my first reaction was, because I've been guilty of it at times, is Donnie's gone on a rant about not washing your hands after you use the bathroom, and now looking at your phone, and I'm like, is he seeing me live my life?
He's following you in the bathroom.
He's following me around here. No.
I am not saying that we all need to be perfect. And I understand that there are times where you're fiddling and it's not ideal. I get it. But oh my God, it just feels like no one absolutely cares about it at all anymore. And to me, it is massively freaking dangerous. And they're talking about increasing the speed limit on highways. What are we doing here?
Which highway? Which highway?
You haven't seen that? Oh, yeah. I believe that there is a law in the Missouri House right now where they're looking to increase the speed limit by at least 5 miles an hour on the interstate highways.
Good God.
Zane's shaking his head yes.
Zane's like, hell yeah.
And so...
Autobahn 270.
Geez, if you get to 55, it is the Autobahn, for Christ's sake.
Oh, yeah.
So
past my mom's house, it's already 70. Going towards your place, It's already 70, going up another 5.
It's NASCAR country. What do you?
Hell, that's true. They drive actually probably better down there.
I fully understand that there are things that get me too worked up. I get it. I'm working on it. I got a new therapist. Her name is Melissa. But like, but
She's got her work cut out.
She has got her work cut out for her. She is the most bubbly person I think I've almost ever met. Let's see where we are in a year. You know what I mean?
Does she listen to the pod? You got to play this.
Well, no, because we are still at the introduction. I don't even know. I guess this is mine, so I can say whatever I want. But no, we just had our first introductory meeting yesterday, so we haven't even had the full.
You haven't even touched the surface.
So we just started taking off.
She's still bubbly.
You got it. Yeah. She was like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Well, I can start." Boom, 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 boom. But yes, we'll see where she is in the year. But guys, like I legitimately, part of the reason I genuinely do get mad about this is because I genuinely think about other people, and it's really dangerous. And I just don't understand why it's such an accepted practice in 2026 as it is, because it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. I'm not trying to be like I'm not trying to be like a get off my lawn old man. I'm not trying to do any of that stuff, man. It just to me seems like massively goddamn dangerous, and I don't understand why nobody cares about it. That's all.
I think you're spot on with it.
Dude, I like this morning, I'm on 270. There's no traffic. There is a lady behind me in a Penske rental truck, and she is literally on my ass, and I can see her looking down in her lap as she's going like upwards of 70 some odd miles an hour in a Penske rental truck, which probably has one brake that works.
I always like the people that have their phones real close to their face that you could tell they don't know how to operate it, but they're trying to figure it out as they're driving.
I think maybe I just need to move somewhere where there's not other people. I think that might be where this whole, like, all of the problems just kind of subside.
Sounds like Donnie's buying an island soon.
The only thing, before we talk Blues, the only thing I want to, final thought on this from me is when your therapist does switch you to another one in a couple weeks, I just want to hear the update.
Yeah, we'll let you know. When Melissa says, you know what, I haven't been doing this long enough. This
I'm
one
still new to the game.
This one might be.
Donnie, this is Veronica. Meet Donnie.
But you know what, though, and I do want to say this because there is we've kind of gone through ups and downs with sort of mental health issues and the public. And I feel as though that unfortunately we're coming back to a point where people, I think that they want to shame other people when they're going to talk to somebody. I think that they want to shame other people when they have to be on an antidepressant. And I think that sort of mind frame is so unbelievably dangerous and ignorant. And I will never, ever stop talking about the issues in which that I have. Because I hope that it makes one person go, you know what? I just need to talk to
Need to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I never thought I needed it until I had my third kid. And I'm like, I got some aggression down there that I probably should figure it out. Now it's helped.
It's really unbelievable when they're unpacking how things sort of like kind of relate. But anyway, please stay off your phone.
Boom.
I just want you to be alive.
Right.
I don't want you to hurt anybody else. I don't want anybody to hurt you. Please just stay off the phone.
And if you're driving next to JR, know he's on his phone and he probably didn't wash his hands when he used the bathroom.
Dirty hands.
And just remember that.
The same guys in this building are still not washing their hands after they go to the bathroom.
Toilet
I just
paper
want to tell you.
still stuck to my shoes.
Shoes, more like your pants, man.
All right. So, guys, I have a sort of question to ask you. Well, first of all, before I do that, a big shout to Tom Stillman for joining us for the podcast last week. I thought that was really incredible that he gave us his time and was so warm and fun with his time, One of the things, though, that I did specifically want to ask you guys about the chat, and I don't exactly remember the exact quote that Tom Stillman said, but there was a distinct moment when we were talking about leaders and leaders on the team, and he sort of alluded to Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou being the leaders on this particular team. And then he sort of went on to talk about consistency and, doing the same thing every night. It seemed to me to be sort of telling. In a very relaxed sort of way. I feel like it kind of sort of told us maybe some things about this team that we've kind of known and maybe thought, but I bet you it seems as though that there is some frustration from management as to how the best players are doing their thing each and every night, which is something that, we have said throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, that was one of the topics that I wanted to make sure I asked, and I didn't know how to frame the question because you just don't know where it's going to go. And so that's why I kind of just left it a broad view, and it's like, hey, talk to me about these guys. I had listened to that quote probably 4 or 5 times because we used it on BK and Ferrario. I used it on pregame. And I'll tell you the part that caught me was, one, the word consistency, but then he also talked about culture with those guys. And he referenced the 2019 team where he said, everybody brought their own bag to the table and they all went out there and worked for each other. And he said, we need to get back to that. And I don't know if that's just on Thomas and Kyrou. I think that's on everybody, but he labeled them the leaders. We've heard the players say that Robert Thomas is the guy. We've heard Doug Armstrong reference that. They're all pointing towards like, hey, there's no more outs anymore. There's no Shen. There's no Justin Falk. There's no O'Reilly or Pietrangelo. It's you guys. And I don't know, for me, and this is just my thought on it and my view on it, and I know people may have interpreted it a little bit differently, it kind of felt like it was not a challenge, but it was a, hey, this is what we need to see for the rest of the season before we make more decisions. Because, I've heard Jeff Merrick say it. I've heard Pierre LeBrun say it. Like, it feels like the Blues are still going to be active this offseason. I don't know what that means for those guys specifically, but, like, it did feel as if the owner is saying the same sentiment that the president of hockey operations was saying, that the coach has been saying. There needs to be consistency, and I think it's consistency, but also making sure that leadership is leading to culture so that everybody is on the same page when you go into next season.
No, great question, and I give Tom credit for giving a answer that had some substance. And like you, Donnie, to me it was the key words in the sentence. It was we need, we have to have, we want. And let's not forget that if you go back in time, they gave those contracts to Kyrou and Thomas ahead of time and paid them handsomely. And that was a situation I'll never forget. Talking to Tom, he said, hey, this was a process. Doug sat down and explained to us, this is why we need to do this. This is why we need to pay. That was the time when Matthew Tkachuk was kind of working his way out of Calgary. And if the Blues hadn't given Kyrou and Thomas the contracts when they did, it could have become a situation where they blew up. And then now they cost a bundle. Now they could do what Matthew Tkachuk did and maybe weasel their way out of St. Louis if they wanted to. And so it was important at that time to get those guys done. Well, has the production been there? Yeah, I think when you look at 2 80-point seasons from Thomas and some 35-plus goal seasons from Kyrou, you got to say, hey, it's not like they were way off base. But if you're going to pay those guys that type of money at that young of an age and say, you're our leaders, and then that doesn't come and you don't feel like you're getting that part of it from those two guys, then Tom has every right to sit here and say, this is what we need from those guys. And so I thought he delivered the answer really well.
And this leads to this for me, guys. Like, I'm happy to see the guys playing well again after the break, but I'm confused. Honestly, I'm completely confused as a Blues fan. I had it in my head, okay, this is going to be a sort of tank-ish sort of situation. Okay, well then that has obviously gone by the wayside.
You're not bad enough to be that.
We are just not bad enough to be that, and I understand. But I just have so many questions as to what this trade deadline did to the locker room, what happened at the trade deadline, what that means going forward, including with Robert Thomas, with Colton Parayko. I just have this really weird feeling that I can't put my finger on, but it doesn't feel great as to where we are. But at the same time, if the team's going out and winning and playing well, which there have been some games where they really have, then that's great. I don't want to be disappointed by. I'm in a weird spot with this team, where we're going, and what the hell I'm even wanting at this point.
I think it was either after the Carolina Hurricanes game or the Oilers game, but one of the two on post game. I basically finally submitted to it. I said, okay, I'm done getting upset about them winning hockey games, because up until that point, it's like I was rooting for them to lose, because you think you can tank, you think you can get a really good pick. And then I witnessed Vancouver and Calgary, and I said, you're not that bad. And even Chicago, since prior to the trade deadline has just been like 2 or 3 wins in their last 10. So it's like, okay, I'm submitting to it from there. You're not that bad. So the thought of McKenna or Stenberg truly comes down to you winning the draft lottery. It's the only way that's going to happen. But then I was also realistic with it, saying, if you look to the next tier of bad teams, you've got the Rangers, you've got the Blues, you've got the Jets, you've got a lot of these teams that have played around with 500 hockey over the last 10, 15 games. And even with the Blues, and I think I said this, even with the Blues winning 6 of their first 8 games out of the Olympic break, they still were tied for the 4th worst record in the National Hockey League. So that's where I said, okay, I'm done with it. I'm washing my hands of worrying about the losses. Now I think I'm just going to enjoy the ride. Because even if the Blues go on a tear, they're not going to get into the playoffs. I think they have to go like 12-3 or 13-2 the rest of the way to put them at 89 points. And that's even hoping you get in at 89 points. So that's why I looked at it and said, you're still going to get a good pick. This seems like it's a deep draft, at least from what Scott Wheeler and Corey Pronman have wrote over on The Athletic. So now it's just a matter of, hey, let's get a little bit more consistency and confidence in this group of players. That is the part that I'm confused by, but I feel like I'm a protective parent in this sense, where it's like anything you do from here on, I'm not going to buy into for next year. So like you could go on a run, you could make yourself the 9th worst team in the National Hockey League. I'm not going to buy into that and say you're going to be great in October.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's kind of, like, what?
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what to even think is a good path going forward. Obviously, it felt weird to be rooting for them to lose, so I'm kind of glad to be out of that.
Right.
But still, I don't even know. Even if they finish this March really strong, what the hell does that even mean?
Yeah. Let me say this, and I want to preface this by saying, look, we all come to this podcast with, a similar mindset, but different perspectives, right? And so, Donnie's a fan. I was a fan growing up. I had Blues posters all over my room. I know you too. But when I got the job to cover the Blues in 2006, you have to cut the cord. And so the reason I'm prefacing this is because, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If the Blues win or the Blues lose on a given night, my feeling is the exact same in my mind when I go home. Exact same. If the Blues go 15-0 down the stretch or 0-15, my mindset is the exact same. It just has to be. You've trained your mind since your 05-06 season to be that way. Mm-hmm. And so when I look at this situation, I'm not surprised that they've gone on this 7-2-1 because you got a situation where Thomas feels like you did something to him. He's got a bit of a chip. He's going to go out there and play his butt off. Berggren wants to be a part of this roster next year. He's playing his butt off.
Holloway wants a contract.
He's healthy. The team, you tell them they can't make the playoffs. Oh, yeah, we'll show you. There's just so much right now that turns into this kind of snowball in terms of playing well. But they're not a great team, so we're going to see some losses like we did in Winnipeg. They're not going to go, I don't think they're going to go 12-3 down the stretch. And so as I look at what this month could be like and how it impacts the Blues or what are we watching or I'm confused, it's just like so many different things could happen. But like Alex just said, you're going to have to start over new next year anyway. Mm-hmm. The roster's going to look a little bit different, things like that. So things just have to play out. So, for example, let's say Thomas continues the rest of the season on this tear. That's either going to increase his stock even more, and they're going to, teams are going to look at him and say, we got to have that guy, or the Blues are going to decide to keep him, and he's going to be part of this. Mm-hmm. And, meanwhile, Doug and Alex are looking at the rest of the roster and deciding, who they want to keep, who they want to build around for next year. So I guess all I'm trying to say is there are so many different things that could happen, including they could finish 8th worst in the league and have a 6% chance to get the number 1 and get it.
Yeah.
So whether they win the next 4, lose the next 4, it's all about the developments, the storylines. Sit down and write your list of top 10 storylines, what to follow, and it's Thomas, it's Holloway, it's
Snuggerud, Mayu, Hofer.
Snuggerud, Mayu, things like that, because those are the things that are going to matter when next season.
I don't know if I said it on this podcast when we did the trade deadline show, or if I said it, I could have said it anywhere. To me, I looked at I looked at the trade deadline and the dust settling as me walking out of Avengers Infinity War, to where you walked out of there and you were like, I don't want to freaking wait for Endgame to come out.
Right.
And you jump to all the conclusions where it's like, well, this guy's dead and this guy's not coming back. Sorry, spoilers, everybody. But to me,
is he trying to take my analogy, Tom?
I totally am, and I think I'm killing it right now. So let me cook for a second. You walked out of that film and you were like, well, this sucks. But that's what that deadline was. I think a lot of Blues fans feel like you do, Donnie, and like I kind of have, to where it's like, man, this is awful because I don't know what's going to happen. And you have to wait impatiently for part 2 to come out, which to me, part 2 is the draft and the offseason, because I don't know where you're picking. I don't know if you're even making those picks. I don't know who's on this roster. I don't know who you're trading off of this roster. So, like, I won't know the outcome of what this movie is telling us until training camp begins next year, because that's really going to tell you where the Blues are pushing you. We can interview Tom, we can interview Doug, we can interview Steen. They're not going to have any answers right now in terms of the direction of the team, because I don't think they know the direction of the team. They know where they want to go, but are you going to get the return for these pieces in a trade? Are you going to not get them and say, well, we got to stick with these guys one more? Or are you just going to sell them for pennies on the dollar and take a chance? Because one path is a rebuild. One path is, hey, we can retool this thing and make it good. Or, hey, we can be aggressive and go out there and get pieces. So, like, this is just us in between waiting for part 2 of this film to come out.
No, you're exactly right. And that's what I'm saying. Because, hey, listen.
He's trying to piggyback my analogy.
Yeah. Even though this is the perspective that I have to have, I totally understand the fan thing big time. So tonight, they win, they lose. Holloway has a hat trick. Everybody's going to,
Yeah, you ride the wave.
You ride the wave. I get it. But to me, I look kind of big picture and say, okay, show me what Alex Steen and Doug Armstrong have in front of them on January 25th.
Yeah.
Show me, okay, so all that played out, and now we know what happened with all those guys, and show me the piece of paper that says, here's what happened down the stretch, and here's what they have to go into the draft and free agency with.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to matter. That's what's going to determine. Yeah. So all the other stuff is fun to follow, but
well, and that's just it. Like, I mean, to play into this, we're talking about the Blues draft pick. I've told people a lot lately, keep an eye on Detroit's draft pick.
I was actually just getting ready to ask you this.
I mean, because Columbus is now a point behind them. Boston and Montreal have leapfrogged them. If Columbus jumps over Detroit, Detroit's out of the playoffs. And if Detroit's out of the playoffs, they become one of those lottery teams. Now, they might be like the 16th, 15th team, which means they win the lottery with like a 0.1% chance. You're only moving up to 5. But worst case scenario, you have 2 picks in the top half of the draft. Best case scenario, you might have 2 picks in the top 10. So like that Detroit pick that you got from Justin Falk is unprotected. So whatever happens to them the rest of the way, and they're without Larkin and Andrew Kopp for at least the rest of this month. That's their 2 best centers. Their goaltending hasn't been great. Like if they fall, that is going to be another potential pick that you may not even select with those. You may package them together and go trade for an NHL piece. So again, it's why I kind of submitted last week to where it's like, I'm done worrying about the wins and losses. Now I just want the positive returns for these pieces that will be here next year, Dvorsky, Stenberg, all these other ones, than worrying about them trying to catch Calgary or Vancouver, because you're not going to catch them. Your goaltending is too good to allow you to be the second worst team in the NHL.
Real quick here, guys, and then I want to take a break. But let's just say Detroit does not make the playoffs this year again. Is Stevie Y ever in any sort of danger with that job in Detroit? Because we've heard about the Yzer plan for seemingly, and I'm not even feeling like I'm exaggerating, like almost 10 years now.
Gotta be.
And this is where we are again. And I know injuries playing a part here, but what do you think? I mean, how long does that guy keep his gig?
You know, obviously, I mean, there couldn't be a bigger fan favorite.
Yeah, it's a legend.
It's
Ian Lidstrom.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I've seen frustration among the Detroit fan base, even people who love him, like, okay, uncle. But I don't know. I mean, I can't see a situation where they, you know, don't make the playoffs and they part ways with him this offseason.
It feels like how much people might be frustrated. I don't hear it loud enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you hear it from Detroit fans with Berube and Trey Living. Like, you hear it with Stan Bowman in Edmonton. I feel like you don't hear it as much in Detroit. I actually feel like, because we pulled some audio once the Falk trade happened, and just we always like to hear the other side of the trade, and there were people that were praising Yzerman to go out there and make that move, because in the past he's just sat on his hands. But it's hard for me to imagine that Detroit would pull the rug out from under Yzerman, if we don't believe that the Yzer plan is working, because it's 10 plus years. They have to be like, well, we went into this, so we kind of have to see this thing through. If you pull the rug out from under it, now where are we going to go?
I guess the best way is if his name was Tom Lumberjack.
Yeah.
He probably would have been gone.
He probably would have been gone.
Yeah, he'd be out of there if that's the case.
But he'd have a cool name like Tom Lumberjack, so we'd have that going for him. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Second segment of the Last Minute Blues podcast on the way. All right, so gentlemen, back for the second segment of the Last Minute Blues podcast. It was announced, I believe, yesterday, Pierre LeBrun had the story, that Doug Armstrong is stepping down as the general manager of Team Canada. I guess my first question for you guys, is that surprising to you at all?
I don't think it was for me. The part that I guess I was surprised by was that it was kind of like a clean break, to where it was like, hey, I'm not going to be associated with it anymore, which I always thought he would just kind of be somebody that was going to be around. He's just not going to be the one in charge. But at least reading it, which I could totally read this incorrectly, it felt like it was like, nope, it's kind of a clean break for me, to where I'm going to let somebody else handle all of these duties moving forward. And if they need my help, I'm happy to. But it felt like it was going to happen at some point, to where, he's been doing this for, what did it say in the piece?
Yeah, a long time.
20 years, 15 years, something like that. So, yeah, it kind of felt like, Doug, if you're doing the clean break with the Blues, to where it's like, hey, it's time for somebody else to take over, it felt like Team Canada was going to have that as well.
Yeah, I'm in no position to speculate, one way or another. Hey, Canada lost, Doug steps down, is that connected? I'm going to take him at his word for it that, he went to Hockey Canada and said, this is what I want to do. And so I can understand it. That took up a lot of time. And I know there were a lot of Blues fans that said, hey, does that interfere with what he's doing with St. Louis? I took the opposite approach. I thought that it puts him in conversations with people throughout the league, trying to determine which are the best players to take for Team Canada. And you find out so much more about guys around the league. And, that can help you with trying to rebuild the Blues. Has it helped in certain situations? I don't know, but I think it would help. But, we don't know contract statuses. I didn't know that his contract expired with Team Canada after the Olympics,
I didn't either.
Which is what Hockey Canada said. So, in one regard, I can see that it made sense. What I'll say and take away from the article, Donny, which maybe you're getting ready to ask, and I'm taking the words out of your mouth, but, he had some comments in the story, too, about the situation here in St. Louis, that, look, he's still just 61 years old. He's still a guy who's got some hunger to build a roster. And he said that it kind of ran its course in St. Louis. Now, listen, we've interviewed Doug. We've talked to him about the situation. I had a quote in a story about a couple weeks ago where he said, about the speculation of him taking another general manager job around the league. Hey, I can't control the white noise, type thing. But what I took out of his comments in that story is that he still wants to manage, and that because it ran the course in St. Louis, he's ready to move on, but he's got the job in St. Louis under contract for the next 3 years to continue on as president of hockey operations. And Tom Stillman was sitting in this exact seat and said, guys, listen, he will be here to help Alex Steen. Doug Armstrong is the guy who went to Tom Stillman and said, hey, I got a plan. What do you think about this? How about Alex takes over? I'll guide him, 3-year contract, stay here and help him. Can Doug Armstrong really go up to Tom Stillman in 6 months and say, hey, I'd like to take a look at this Toronto Maple Leafs job? Like, Tom is the one who went along with this plan, and then would have to answer, Doug on terms of moving. So I guess the way I see it is, I can't see Doug, after all he's said about wanting to help Alex and be here for Alex and be that mentor like Bob Gainey was to him, and then just up and leave this summer to go to Toronto. Now, it could happen, but I don't think so. I don't think, though, that Doug's going to finish out the 3 years with the president of hockey operations job. I think at some point, whether it's a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to find him general managing a team.
Listen, I'm not a betting man at all. I don't bet. I wish I
we should get in on that, Donny.
I'm going to tell you something right now. I'll put money in the middle of that table that within the next 16 months, that Doug Armstrong is gone, and I'm telling you, it's going to be Toronto.
Really?
Listen, listen, you guys know way more about this sport than I do, so I'm completely talking out of my ass here. But I'm telling you something that I believe that is a man, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He is driven by ego and by passion, and I think that he is the exact type of person that could be in front of that Toronto media every third day, every week, whatever, handling all. There is just something that inside of me that is drawing me to that situation. But I agree with you. There's no way he's finishing out that 3 years here. And whether it be Toronto or somewhere else, that guy's not done.
The part that I find fascinating about it is I agree with everything that you guys are saying, but Tom, what's Tom Stillman's appetite for that? Because again, he was sitting in that chair and we've heard him talk. I mean, he is always glowing about Doug Armstrong. Like, he says he is the best general manager in the league. And if I'm Tom, I don't want to say concern, but there's questions of just a new general manager taking over, to where it's like he comes to me in 16 months from now and says, hey, Tom, look, this has been incredible. I love my time in St. Louis, but I got the Toronto Maple Leafs calling me. I mean, if you're Tom and you don't feel comfortable, sorry, you got contract. Like, no, we need you here. This was your plan. That's the part that I find fascinating with it. Like, what happens when that dynamic is where they come together and they say, hey, I got something, that's fine, but we're still in a rough spot, and I need you to help me get past this rough spot before you leave. That's the dynamic.
But you don't want somebody here that doesn't want to be here, that's foot is halfway out the door wanting to go somewhere else.
You're absolutely right.
So I don't disagree with you either, but any interview that I read from Doug Armstrong, that I see Doug Armstrong, like the winning and the intensity, it's gone nowhere. So I think the idea of us, I just think the idea of Doug Armstrong just packing this away quietly into retirement. We're going to do this for a few years and then we're going to... Oh, yeah. There's no way. That is not how that dude is built.
Not happening. And I think you're right, Donny. I think it's going to be Toronto. Like, it hasn't worked out there. I don't know that they can part with Trey Living this summer. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. It looks like they'll probably, fire Craig.
Somebody's going to get fired.
Craig Berube. But maybe not this summer, but the following summer is the year, if things don't go well in Toronto, that they move with him. Yeah, he's just kind of built for that type of role. And, I know it's easy to put the world's best players on the ice at Team Canada, but it's still a prominent job, job that takes a lot of gall, and that Doug has. And so I think that's what it's going to take to run the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And I feel like he's going to have that hunger, too, to, not get that day-to-day stuff for a year, to where it's like you're doing those transactions, you're looking at the team, you're having those daily... that hunger is going to be there. Can I try and sway you guys on another team, though?
Ooh, let's go.
So this is total my tinfoil theory on this.
I love your tinfoil theory.
So what about Edmonton?
So I heard you say that on the show, and I'm not discounting it whatsoever. I just think he needs... I know McDavid's there, but he might not be there, right?
But Matthews might not be in Toronto.
Yeah, but I don't think Matthews is taking them anywhere anyway.
Well, you're not wrong there.
So I think that Toronto is the Mecca.
Uh-huh.
Toronto hasn't won.
But how fast can you get there in Toronto versus Edmonton?
Great question, but that's where Doug comes in and he says, I can do it.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. That's where he says, hey,
either way, you're a hero.
Because if it hasn't happened there and he brings the parts in there to build that team and they do get it done, then it's like, whoa. Like, that's the stamp on his Hockey Hall of Fame invite.
Which is already kind of there. But the Edmonton one for me, to what JR mentioned, said it on BK and Ferrari yesterday. McDavid's got 2 years before he's an unrestricted free agency after this season. And so I think my tinfoil was, you get one more year of this, it doesn't go well, people are already wanting Stan Bowman out of there, and then that's when Doug steps in, where the final year left of Connor McDavid's contract, and people are like, oh my God, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Doug comes in, wheels and deals, fixes the roster to the point where McDavid...
for Binnington.
Yeah, trades for Binnington, or signs him in free agency. And Armstrong looks at it and says, cool, I'm not only going to sway Connor McDavid to stay in Edmonton, but I'm going to build this into a Stanley Cup champion that next season, my first season in Edmonton, and then you're a hero right away.
All right, how about this? How about he goes to Toronto and he signs McDavid to Toronto?
Oh, man.
All right, how about he goes to Vancouver and he goes into a rebuild? That's not
But
happening.
he's the type of guy who likes to bounce around and get to games and get around the league and stuff like that. Could you imagine? Like Toronto, you're right there. You just boom, boom, bam. You're all over the Eastern. I got to fly to Edmonton. Now I got to go back to.
You're not wrong. Yeah. Stay in one spot.
I am just completely fascinated by not only Doug Armstrong, but that alpha personality that is doing that job the way in which that he does. Because you have to, I feel like you have to have that sort of persona to be able to do it that way.
You got to command the room.
You really, really do. And I just don't think that guy is done or even close to it. I really don't. Let's do this. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Final segment of the Last Minute Blues podcast coming your way next. Guys, one thing I wanted to bring up to you was the hit last week. I think it happened, I don't remember exactly what day it happened last week, but we're talking about the hit of Radko Gudas on Austin Matthews in the Ducks and Leafs game. And there was a 5-game suspension, which at the time I think is a joke. I think it was a clear intent to injure. And then yesterday, George Peros, the czar of player safety, comes out and doubles down on the 5 games. Guys, I don't, Alex, you and I kind of talked about this before the show. I don't think that the number of games suspended should be more because it's Austin Matthews. I think it should be more because it was clear it was an intent to injure with a guy that has a history of doing some dirty stuff. I'm curious to know what you guys think on that whole situation. Yeah. And then also, too, thank God we're not Leafs fans, and we didn't see our team absolutely do nothing on our best
went
player.
To the concession stand. I saw if you watched the replay close enough.
They got a corn dog. Absolutely, man.
I love the stills of the photos that were taken because they took a couple of shots while Matthews is on the ice, head down, and it's Morgan Riley just standing right behind him, just staring off into space. And I'm like, man, what's going through his mind right now of, I should probably jump in on this.
I should have done something.
It probably should have done something, and no coincidence that Toronto's basically won every game since that Austin Matthews hit. I mean, look, the first part that I hated about the narrative was everyone like, oh my God, it's Austin Matthews. You got to suspend him for 10, 15 games. It's like, I think you should suspend him for that much because of the hit that it was.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it was pretty evident that he stuck his knee out and didn't try to avoid contact with Austin Matthews. I always just go off of track record. And Radko Gudas has had this before where he's had a couple of suspensions for questionable hits and things like that. And when I saw 5 games, I'm like, boy, that's the precedent you're going to put out there right now. It felt like it should have been a 10-gamer or maybe more. But, I mean, I feel like it's always so iffy when it comes to the player safety stuff to where it's like that looked like it should have been a suspension and then it's not suspended or a fine. And then you get some suspensions where it's like, that's all you get in this one. Mm-hmm. I told Donny they would never agree to this. I feel like when it's that blatant of an injury and that blatant of a hit to where it's like, hey, it was pretty obvious what you were trying to do there. I think the player should be suspended the amount of time that the player's injured.
Yeah.
To where it's like, look, you're going to lay the hit, you're going to do the crime, you're going to do the time. Again, it would never pass, and how would you judge what's intentional, what's unintentional? But for something like that, 5 games that felt like it was just a slap on the wrist for sticking your knee out and going after somebody.
Yeah, they got a hard job. Peros has a hard job, right? And I've interviewed him before I think we did a Cam Fowler story. Nice guy, you talk to him, things like that. But when I read his interview yesterday and you read kind of his thought process on how they come up with this, he was like, well, if I think that it might be more than 5, then sometimes I'll do a hearing, but I give myself some wiggle room. Like, what is going on here?
I know.
How about this was a knee-on-knee hit? Let's just look exactly at what it was and forget Matthews, forget Toronto, forget all this. Just know that Gudas has a history. Like, I don't know. So the bottom line is you can't get 30 people to watch a video and everybody agrees that it's 4 games, it's 8 games. But everybody should have a general idea. Like,
right.
Most of the room should be able to look at the video and go, okay, yeah, this is what's going to happen here. And
you mean most of the room that can't decide what goaltender interference is?
Yeah, exactly. That's even more of a mystery than the player safety. But that's the point. Like, maybe get more current players involved. I don't know. Like maybe have a panel.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, I realize that, like Pero said, they have the player safety department. It's made up of some guys who played. It's made up of some guys who've done it for 30 years. It seems like a pretty good group of people doing it, but it's just not there.
I think it should be a group of players that are currently playing. And I know that's tough to ask them and to put onto their plate, but I feel like that would be the best determining factor.
Well, and just to be clear here, we're saying to help with the guidelines.
To help,
not review the hits.
No, not review the hits. That's the Department of Player Safety. But
right.
To help with the guidelines of what this is and what this should be, rather than just going to guys who used to play the game. I don't know if that helps decide on what's taking place now, if that makes any sense.
And also, too, and one thing I did, I wanted to preface it when I kind of started the spiel. I understand that the game is being played at an insane speed. And judging what someone else's intent is always a really risky freaking proposition as well. But it just seemed absolutely just over the top. As a situation that deserved more than 5 games, and I thought that he should have gotten an in-person hearing as well, I thought that was crazy. Guys, as we get a little bit closer to the end of the season, is there anyone, one of the things that we've talked about throughout the course of the year is no real clear-cut front runner here in the NHL. Is that continued to you as we get closer to the playoffs? Do you see anybody sort of raising their hand as to you're going to have to beat us to win the cup?
I don't know how you don't say Buffalo. Buffalo right now would be the team that I've seen a lot of people say they got a lot of 2019 Blues vibes to them, and they do. I call me skeptical still. There's one thing we know that you have to have when it comes to NHL playoffs and to win a Stanley Cup is you have to have elite goaltending and elite defense. And I think Buffalo, although they have been sensational, I'm not taking anything away from them, they have done a lot of just outscoring and dominating their opponents. That Tampa Bay Lightning game where, 8-7, and they came from behind, I think that was the moment that everyone was like, oh, Buffalo's going to win the cup. Those games don't happen in the playoffs.
Right.
You win hockey games in the playoffs 2-1, 1-0, 3-2. Like you don't win 5-2 and 6-5. So I think a lot of people would look at Buffalo. To me, I still think the 3 best teams are in the Central, and I'm not picking Colorado. I'm saying it's going to be Dallas or Minnesota. I think Colorado's got goaltending issues. I think Colorado's goaltending is a little too shaky. I think Dallas and Minnesota are probably the better teams. The wilder part is talking about who might miss the playoffs in Edmonton. I mean, Leon Draisaitl out for the rest of the season is massive, and they've got the LA Kings on their tail on top of the San Jose Sharks and the Seattle Kraken. So it is a wild world where we will say Connor McDavid may miss the playoffs when the last 2 years they've been in the Stanley Cup final.
Absolutely. JR, what do you think?
Well, so it's fun to watch Buffalo, like they're on a roll, right? And 2019 vibes. The one thing is the Blues, before they won the Cup in 19, obviously went through some hard playoff losses and got hardened. Like that's what happens to teams, and then they take that next step and they win the Cup. So even though it was a fluky year in terms of being down in the first half of the year and then winning, they had been through the process. And, Buffalo, all they've done
is 17 years.
Yeah. But they haven't taken like second round playoff losses, third round playoff losses. So if they go on a roll, hey, more power to them. But they just haven't been through that part of it yet. I like the teams who've been through it, and even though they might be losing some games here where you scratch your head, like Colorado the other night, they got goaltending like Alex said. I still think the Colorados, the Dallases, and can one of these years be Carolina's year?
Wow,
it
better be this year.
Beat them, but yeah. But I like Rod Brind'Amour. You like the team. But I just think that they're a team who I still like in the East, and so whether it's a Carolina, Dallas, Carolina, Colorado, Carolina, Minnesota. Yeah, like Minnesota, I think isn't somebody you should dismiss.
Yeah, Carolina's the one that it's like, man, you've run into Florida, the last two seasons, 3 seasons? Them not being there is like, man, if you ever wanted your shot to, which is why I find it so insane that they didn't make a move at the deadline. Yeah. They didn't pull off some type of trade to get better at the deadline because it's like, hey, you got Florida now not in it. Where's your move to make you better? But yeah, I still look at the Central and say the Central is going to be the team to beat when it comes to the Stanley Cup.
Very good. All right. Well, gentlemen, I feel as though that we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And I got to let you know that I've got to, hold on, I got a list here.
Oh my gosh, you got a list?
Yeah, I got to, I'm on vacation this week, so I got to go to Trader Joe's.
Oh, it's a Post-it note.
I got to get oyster sauce, soy sauce, a pack of carnitas, stuff to make chicken Caesar wraps, some Chinese.
Dinner at Donny's this week, JR.
I got to get a shallot, and then something called a fresh tarragon.
I don't know what half this stuff is.
Yeah.
I go to Taco Bell.
Did you? What was the first one you said?
Oyster sauce.
Oyster sauce. What the hell is oyster sauce?
That's for Mary. I don't know, for something for Mary. I don't partake in that.
I don't know what oyster sauce is.
I am allergic to the shellfish, so I can't be messing around in the land of oysters.
So you guys cook different dinners then?
Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So I gotta go do that.
Trader Joe's if you want to see Donny.
Yeah, you're gonna go over there right now.
This will drop by the time he's already gone.
Can I give you guys like a for real little tip though? Seriously, have you guys ever, when you need to buy flowers for the missus? Have you ever gone to Trader Joe's?
No, I get mine from Costco.
Okay, I don't know what that's about, but I can tell you that the flowers over there are friggin' gorgeous and they're cheap and they last for a long time. So you ever get yourself in a little trouble, go on over there.
Trader Joe's.
I would, but there's a 7-Eleven right by my house. So
You stop it.
He gets one single stemmed rose and a hot dog.
And it's even one of those chocolate foil roses.
Yeah, and the hot dog and the roses for him.
Better yet. I need to go to.
He eats sorry, I got you a chocolate rose, but I ate it before I got home.
Better yet, I go to Rock and Roll Arena, buy that.
Oh, there we go.
You know the guys skating around, couple skate
holding hands, and the loser that can't skate backwards, so he has to skate next to her.
Well, that ended up being a lot more fun of a
Jeremy,
course than
where
I
did
thought
you
it was
get
going to be.
this flower? Well, the guy was skating around.
I won the pinball machine. I got 150 tickets, so I figured why not.
All right, boys, let's wrap her up. Wrap her up. I got to get to Trader Joe's.
Get that oyster sauce.
For our friends, Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, I'm Donny Fandango. Thank you as always for listening and watching, and let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast on 101 ESPN
is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for free inspection.